The initial scene unfolds with a deeply troubling encounter, as law enforcement officers confront the mayor's daughter, a young woman caught in a web of mistaken identity and racial bias. The officers, driven by prejudice and baseless assumptions, approach her with unwarranted aggression, immediately suspecting her of prostitution without any factual basis. Their demeanor quickly escalates, culminating in the shocking act of holding her at gunpoint, a gross overreach of authority that leaves her terrified and humiliated. Despite her desperate attempts to explain her situation and assert her innocence, the officers dismiss her words, blinded by their preconceived notions. This harrowing experience not only inflicts emotional and psychological trauma upon the mayor's daughter, but also lays bare the deep-seated issues of racial profiling and abuse of power within the police force. The incident serves as a stark reminder of the potential for injustice when law enforcement is guided by bias rather than evidence. Before we go further, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more stories like this. This incident brings to light the pervasive issue of racial profiling, a practice that disproportionately targets individuals based on their race or ethnicity rather than any reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. The officers' actions in this case were clearly motivated by racial prejudice, as they made assumptions about the mayor's daughter based solely on her appearance and background. This type of bias is not only unjust but also deeply harmful, as it perpetuates stereotypes, erodes trust in law enforcement, and undermines the principles of equality and justice. The incident is not an isolated event, but rather part of a larger pattern of racial discrimination that has plagued policing systems for generations. It underscores the urgent need for comprehensive reforms to address systemic racism and ensure that law enforcement practices are fair and unbiased. The public's response to the incident is characterized by widespread outrage and a fervent demand for accountability. News of the confrontation quickly spreads through social media, sparking a firestorm of criticism directed at the police department and its officers. Citizens from all walks of life express their anger and frustration, organizing protests and demonstrations to voice their opposition to racial profiling and police brutality. Civil rights organizations amplify these calls for justice, leveraging the incident as a catalyst for broader discussions about police reform and community relations. The mayor, deeply affected by the injustice inflicted upon his daughter, issues a powerful statement condemning the officer's actions and vowing to pursue all available avenues for redress. The incident becomes a focal point for a larger movement demanding an end to systemic racism and police misconduct. The police department finds itself under intense scrutiny in the wake of the incident, facing mounting pressure to address the allegations of racial profiling and abuse of power. Internal investigations are launched to determine the facts of the case and assess the officer's conduct. Law enforcement officials issue public statements expressing their commitment to transparency and accountability, promising to take appropriate disciplinary action if wrongdoing is found. However, many question the sincerity of these promises, pointing to a history of inadequate investigations and lenient punishments in similar cases. Community leaders and activists demand meaningful reforms to address systemic issues within the police department, calling for mandatory bias training, improved oversight mechanisms, and greater community involvement in policing decisions. The incident serves as a test of the police department's commitment to justice and its ability to address the root causes of racial discrimination. The incident underscores the urgent need for systemic reform to address racial profiling, police brutality, and the abuse of power. Legal actions may be pursued to hold the officers accountable for their actions and to seek redress for the harm caused to the mayor's daughter. This legal recourse could include civil lawsuits seeking damages for emotional distress, violation of civil rights, and other related claims. Beyond individual accountability, the incident prompts a renewed focus on broader policy changes that aim to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. These policy changes may include implementing mandatory bias training for all law enforcement personnel, improving oversight mechanisms to ensure that police actions are transparent and accountable, and promoting greater community involvement in policing decisions. It also calls for a re-evaluation of the criteria used to evaluate police performance, shifting the focus from metrics such as arrest quotas to measures of community trust and engagement. Ultimately, the incident serves as a catalyst for a broader conversation about the role of law enforcement in society and the need to ensure that police serve and protect all members of the community, regardless of race or background. The incident sparks a broader societal dialogue about race, privilege, and justice. It challenges communities to confront uncomfortable truths about how systemic racism affects individuals and perpetuates inequality. It also encourages individuals to examine their own biases and assumptions and to actively work to create a more just and equitable society. The story becomes a rallying cry for those who have long fought for equality and justice, and inspires a new generation of activists to join the struggle. It highlights the importance of standing up against injustice and advocating for systemic change. The incident serves as a reminder that the fight for equality is not over, and that continued effort and commitment are necessary to create a more just and equitable society for all. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more stories like this, be sure to subscribe and follow us.